Hey there folks, this is Josh, Stoney Ridge Farmer. Welcome back to another beautiful day here in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina. It's the Stoney Ridge Farm. Here's what we're doing today. It's baby chick day, and I don't know if you guys can hear this. I'm super excited to open this box. I haven't opened it yet. So these are 35 baby meat birds from Murray McMurray Hatchery. And those little guys are pecking on my fingers as I'm picking them up. They are curious little critters. So this video is dedicated to folks that are seasoned in raising chickens. If you've done this before, I promise you're gonna learn something by watching this video. And also for novice people, if this is your first time ever getting chicks, I'm gonna teach you a good, safe, and intelligent way to start your chicks that will keep them healthy, that will keep them happy, and will also be safe. Both safe for your home, your barn, your shop, wherever you keep the baby chicks, and safe for your birds. So come along today as we all learn a little bit together on how to set up a brooder for our baby chicks, and we'll give you definitions of all this stuff that I'm talking about as we go, okay? Stoney Ridge Farm, Stoney Ridge, Stoney Ridge Farm. Okay guys, it's driving me absolutely crazy to not just tear into the box, but you're gonna have to wait for that. We're gonna show you the tips and tricks and tools first, okay? You need to get this stuff set up at least a couple days ahead of time so that your brooder is nice and warm. Now, for today's demonstration purposes, I already have it set up in the back of the shop back there, but we want to show you guys exactly what you need to do. And in case you didn't set it up on day one or 2 days before, here you go. This is how we set it up. So there are a few tools that you're going to need, and this is going to be, I'm going to be feeding you with a fire hose, so you can go back and watch this over and over again if you want to. Share it with your husband, share it with your wife, share it with your kids, so that everybody learns how to do this safely so that your chicks aren't harmed, okay? So first things first, number one thing you probably want to look into is getting, this is just hand gel. Chicks, baby chicks are inherently cute critters, and we just want to snuggle and hug on them and love on them and get salmonella, okay? They are dirty. They are not they're not people. They're not little people, guys. So be sure if your kids or if you are handling these baby birds that you're cleaning your hands prior to, because you can bring disease to them, and that you're cleaning your hands afterwards. So hand gel, the best thing to do is wash your hands first and wash your hands afterwards. But in case you're out here in the shop, we don't have running water, so I hit the old hand gel right quick. That's a little safety tip. Now that might seem extreme to some of you guys that have been raising chickens for years. I'm telling you guys, it will help your survival rate. You will have a better survival rate of your chickens if you do things the clean way. Eventually, the chickens develop immunity to anything. You don't have to worry about any of that. Now, let's talk about the next thing that you need. You need a brooder. This is a Tartar Farm and Ranch 100-gallon stock tank. This 100-gallon stock tank gets used on the farm for watering our cattle, for watering goats, and it also serves as a brooder. So we have a couple of these set to the side that we use almost specifically for brooder boxes. So a 100-gallon tank will hold 50 birds without any trouble. We have 35 birds in here right now. If you put 100 birds in this tank, they're gonna be too crowded and you're gonna have a huge mess, a big manure load, and it's gonna make everything a lot harder for you. So I suggest getting 2 tanks if you're gonna get more than 50 birds, okay? 35 birds, perfect, golden, awesome. And we're gonna take you to our mobile chicken tractor here in just a minute after we go through all the tools and we put the chicks in the brooder box. So these are our baby chicks. Of course you need those. I'm gonna set these guys down so we don't hear them peeping, and I'm gonna show you the rest of the tools. Next tools you're gonna need a heat source. Now I have 3 different heat sources here for you guys. This one is the most fire safe heat source that you can find. This is good for 15, 25, 30 birds, something like that. So we have 2 of these. This is basically a plastic. These are plastic sides on this thing. They're adjustable, and you basically make a little mama bird. This is a mama bird, a plastic mama bird. So this little heat pan stays warm underneath here, and that's where the birds go, and they get warm underneath there. There are other ways to keep the birds warm, but we have 2 of these, okay? That's what we're gonna use because it's much, much safer and you won't burn your barn down with a situation like this. Now, don't quote me on that, but this is much safer than what I'm getting ready to show you. So, we have also a heat lamp setup. So you'll find these at your local farm stores. I'll post links to everything we are using today that you can buy online or in a farm store. This is a standard heat lamp, okay? It has this clamp right here, and typically would have a little safety shield around the outside edge in most cases, but this design doesn't have a safety shield. This is a red heat lamp, okay? You don't need to use red. You don't have to use red. Red is just what they had at the farm store when I bought this. They make a clear one. This is a 120 volt, 250 watt bulb, so it sucks some power. These guys suck hardly any power, okay? So this is much more efficient than this and much safer. But if you're stuck on a heat lamp, then this is the kind of heat lamp we use. Now, for these birds this year, we're gonna be using something really simple. And this is a different style of heat lamp, but this is a fluorescent bulb. This fluorescent bulb will also provide heat for the chicks. Not a lot of heat. Something you also need to be prepared for here. Let's see if I can do this without pulling everything off on the ground. There we go. Baby chicks, you see this? This isn't new stuff. That's the dust. That's the dust from last season's baby chicks. It's a lot of dust, so be prepared for that, guys. If you want to stop dust in your brooder, go over to Walmart or Lowe's or your local hardware store and buy yourself a screen for a screened-in porch window. Just put it right over top of there, and that'll help keep the dust down in your house, in your shop, in your garage, wherever you put your brooder box, okay? So we've covered lights, we've covered cleanliness. Now on to feeders and waterers. So I have several different types of feeders and waterers here, and I want to cover a lot of them. All this stuff is available at Murray McMurray Hatchery, and also I'll post Amazon links for you too. So this is a feeder for these baby chicks. On the top of this feeder, you see that? It spins. That keeps the birds from lighting up here because these guys love to climb and they're curious. They'll jump up there and that'll roll off and they won't be able to roost up here and consequently poop in their feed. Now, is that gonna hurt them? No, but it's kind of gross, okay? So you don't want a whole lot of manure load in your feed. That's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? It's already been processed, if you know what I mean. This is another type of feeder that we use. And again, I'll post links to this. This is one that we painted. So I painted this just because it looked cool and I had some extra paint. So that's a John Deere wheel yellow. It's pretty cool. Those are the 2 types of feeders that we will use probably for the first 2 to 3 weeks with our birds. Then we'll graduate up to a feeder about this big, and then we'll move them to the outside mobile coop, and I'll show you that here in just a second, okay? This is the waterer that we start with. Now, this is just a quart mason jar with water, a little water screw top thing. This is very inexpensive, and you see that I have gravel in here, okay? The gravel is in here because baby chicks just came out of a warm and moist environment. They have been in those eggs for so long. That's a warm and moist environment for the baby chicks. Well, you have to think, a lot of baby chicks drown, so don't go putting a big pan of water in your brooder box and expect your chicks to survive. They're gonna jump in there and they're gonna drown, guys. So what we do in order to prevent the drowning risk is we take just standard gravel, and you can go get a handful of gravel anywhere you want to, any parking lot probably, and it doesn't hurt the birds and it keeps them from getting down in that water and drowning. I don't care if you start with a waterer that's this size or the tiny waterer that we have here. 35 chicks will probably drink that the first day, okay? They're very curious little critters, and we'll show you guys how to train them to drink. There's a very, very simple way. We'll show you that too. Now, let's move on to shavings. Over the years of raising birds, I've learned a lot. You can use newspaper, you can use wood shavings, you can use cedar shavings, pine shavings. I find that using cedar shavings is a obnoxious, very noxious smell to the birds. So in other words, would you like to stick your head in a bag of cedar hamster shavings and smell that all day, every day? Probably not. So it's very noxious to the birds. There's a reason why cedar keeps bugs out. It's a noxious fume that comes off of there. It smells good, smells like Christmas to me. However, that's not what you want your birds to suffer through. So we always use pine shavings. Now, when you use pine shavings, there are probably 2 grades of pine shavings you can get from your local feed and seed or your local Walmart store. This one came from Walmart because when I was at the feed store, I totally forgot to get it. And this is a fine cut. You want a rough cut sawdust or pine shavings. If you get the rough cut, it won't make as much dust as the fine cut. So we're all about dust prevention. Dust makes a mess, and dust also makes a fire hazard. So, and again, the heat lamp bulb is much more fire prone than the fluorescent bulb. Now, when it comes to hanging your light inside your brooder, we're going to set all that up and we're going to show you what we do, and we'll show you how we introduce the baby birds. There are a few techniques that I use that most people don't know about. When it comes to putting shavings in the bottom of your brooder, the first layer of shavings needs to be about maybe 1 inch deep, okay? If you're from a different country, figure out what 1 inch is. 10 centimeters, I don't know. So we'll fill it up to about 1 inch deep, all the way even and all the way level across. You want to have your brooder warm already. It needs to be somewhere between 85 and 95 degrees under the heat lamp, and they need to be able to move from the heat lamp away from the heat lamp. If your baby birds are concentrated under the heat lamp, that means they are too cold. If they are spread out all the way from the heat lamp, that means your brooder is too hot. You need to get the lamp either further up and away from the chicks, or use a little bit less of a wattage of a bulb. I find that these heat lamp bulbs are very dangerous and they can start fires, and that's why we've moved from heat lamps over to these little brooder dudes right here. And if you're doing this in your living room with your kids, this is much more handy and less likely to burn your kid too, for sure. You can put your hand on that. It's not that hot, and it keeps up underneath it, it keeps it above 80, 85 degrees, something like that. I've checked the temperatures on this stuff. If you're roasting your chickens, they're not going to make it. If you're roasting your shavings, you're going to have, instead of a brooder, you're going to have a fire pit, and you don't want a fire pit. So let's get the brooder down, and I'll show you another cool tool. It's right here. I'll show you another cool tool that we use to ensure the safety of our lights in case we decide that we want to use a heat lamp. Okay, before we show you the brooder, I want to show you what I keep my feed in. You can buy this at your local farm store. I'll also post a link to one of these. It's a little miniature trash can, basically, okay? I don't even know how many gallons. I'm going to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 gallons. It'll hold about a half of a 50-pound bag, and here it is. This is the feed that we're going to feed our chicks. Now, we use a non-medicated chick starter, and for our meat birds, we use a 24%. If you have game birds, you want to use the 24%. If you have layers, you might want to step it down to a 20% protein mix, okay? And this is what it looks like. This is the crumble, okay? You want to get the crumble. Once your birds get big enough to where they can rake with their feet, they want to rake out everything, like your laying hens, you want to get a pellet. If you want to waste feed, get the crumble and feed it to your grown-up laying hens, and they'll scratch it and make a huge mess all over your chicken coop and waste a ton of food. This is all about food management and not wasting anything. That's why you're doing this, because you're a conscious person that doesn't want to waste things. Let's pull the brooder down here and I'll show you what we do. This is a Tartar Farm and Ranch 100-gallon stock tank. Lay our stock tank out. Want to make sure everything is clean as a whistle inside here, and then we're going to introduce our shavings. Again, guys, I use a coarse, and this is from Tractor Supply, I use a coarse pine shaving. The first time you introduce shavings to your brooder, you want them to be deep. Now, you don't want to leave a mess like this, so you'll go in here and just kind of shake it out a little bit. There's a reason why you're doing this deep for the first time, okay? This stuff will get packed down really tight. I almost went a little too deep, but that's about a quarter of a bag right there. Okay, here's how this feeder works, and the reason we like to use it is because I can set it right there and fill it up. So this slides just like that, and that's all you need to do. You need to slide it open wide enough to fit the scooper in there. We'll set it right here. We're gonna take our feeder and we're gonna take a nice scooper, and what we do is just slide it back in there. Pour a little in, slide it back in there. Pour it in, slide it back in there. Now you'll notice I'm doing this right over top of the brooder. Why am I doing that? Well, if I spill any feed, it goes right down in the brooder. And then we'll set this guy kind of off to the side, away from the heat lamp area. We'll just kind of set it back here. Now we'll set our waterer in here. We want to pack this down just a little bit before we set our waterer down. So I'm just taking my hand and packing it down, and I want to put this in an area right there, okay? So the baby birds can get to it. It's just sitting right here smack in the middle of the brooder. You want to do that, and these birds are going to knock stuff over. They're going to spill stuff. They're going to kick these shavings over into the waterer. So expect to clean it the first few days at least probably 2 or 3 times. So check it in the morning, check it at midday, check it afternoon, or in the morning and in the afternoon. You want to set this up a couple days ahead of time in case you're going to work and you got to leave the birds at home alone. You want to make sure that it's safe, okay? Now let me show you something that I use to keep it safe. This is called an Irwin Quick Grip. It is a little gripper that will go right onto the side of your stock tank. Just like that. You squeeze it. It's basically a clamp. And now this is firmly mounted, so no kitty cats and no kids are going to knock this off. It's there. It's where it's going to be, okay? And we'll take this, we'll loosen it back up, and I'll show you what we do with the heat lamp. All right, for the first few days, we're going to take our heat lamp and we're going to take and tie a knot in it, okay? Just like so. This will get the heat lamp down close to the birds. Again, you want to set this up ahead of time. Take your quick grip, slide that right in there, and then do that right there, okay? Now, you can do this also with zip ties, and I'll show you a pretty interesting way to do that if you've got zip ties laying around the house. Take your Irwin Quick Grip off, and typically these lights will have a tool for hanging, and they'll also have a little loop right here, okay? So take your zip tie, go right through that loop, and hang your light, just like so. Give it a couple clicks, and now tighten up your quick grip, just like so. And now you have an adjustable light. So as the birds get older and need less heat, you can move this up by just simply pulling and tightening the zip tie. You can bring it up. Now you'll notice this kind of points off to the side. You do want a safe area for your chicks, okay? So you don't want the heat lamp filling up the entire brooder with heat, okay? If you do decide to put a screen over this, use a metal screen, no plastic, nothing like that. Now this lamp is going to point back in this corner. These baby chicks that are cold or cool, and they will go to the heat lamp immediately after they come out of the box because they're going to be a little bit chilly. We're going to open the box, we're going to introduce the chicks, expect them to go to the heat lamp at first, but then eventually they'll start wandering out and they'll learn the lay of the land basically per se. Now we're going to release the chicks in here and we're going to show you guys exactly what to do to train your birds to know where the water is, and they'll find the food, trust me. They're curious little critters. You really don't have to show them anything, but this is one little tip that helps. And now for what you've all been waiting for, the attack of the cute fuzzballs. Now, something to expect sometimes when you open your baby chicks is you may have one that did not make the trip. And that's normal. Even in nature, even with mama hen out there, that's normal. You're gonna lose some chicks, guys. So out of 35 chicks here, hopefully I don't lose any, but I would expect to lose maybe 1 or 2. If you bought 10 chicks, you might not lose but 1, but expect to have some losses, guys, and don't let that be something that you beat yourself up about and that you're heartbroken about. Don't let that be something that hurts you, okay? This is life, and these are fragile little critters, and that's why we wash our hands and everything before we start, okay? So we've gelled our hands, and we're gonna open this up, and the first side should have half the chicks, and the other side should have the other half of the chicks. A lot of times, hatcheries will send an extra chick to make up for what may be considered a loss that you might have. So we're gonna open them up, and I open one side at a time, and I always like to do this above and or near the brooder. If I can, I'll open the box in the brooder. That is safer, much, much safer, because if you drop one of these babies, if your children drop one of these baby chicks, they're going to be killed, okay? So you really have to think about that. You want to be careful. Very gentle, little sweeties. Oh, they're so sweet. That's so cute. Check them out, guys. Half of them are sleeping. So it's very normal for baby chicks to be sleeping. Here's one. Isn't that cute? It's very normal. All these guys do is eat, sleep, and drink, and poop. That's what they do. That's their job for the next few days. So reach in, pick out one or two. I've got the GoPro going inside the brooder here so you guys can see me setting them in. I want to set them kind of close to underneath the light. I don't know yet if we have any losses. I don't think we do. Everybody looks pretty healthy. And again, these are Cornish cross meat birds, okay? This will be the meat for our family for the rest of the year, okay? And we'll show you processing, and we'll show you everything you need to know. Now, there is a video that I have out there. Sometimes these baby chicks will get stressed. This is one of the most stressful times in any baby bird's life, in any baby chicken's life. Let's see. No losses there, okay? That's awesome. I'm gonna show you inside this in a second. Now, the other side. These guys are cute. Gosh, they're so cute. Look at that. So expect to have some losses. The first poop that these birds poop out, and I'll show you that here in a second, is called meconium, okay? And it's similar to a baby human. It's basically kind of a blood stool, a bloody stool almost. It's black stool that they first have, and it's normal, okay? So guys, don't worry about that too much. Now I have a video about what's called poopy butt. So sometimes the birds have a butt. It's called the vent. Sometimes on the vent, it'll get clogged up. I have a video out about that. So if your birds happen to have that problem, they get poopy butt, look, all survivors, and that's their meconium poop, okay? That's what you get. You can discard that or recycle the box or however you want to do it. So our baby birds right now are settling into the brooder, and most of them are curious and pecking around. A way that you can teach your birds how to drink and where the water is simply to reach down, pick up a bird, and you would typically do this inside the brooder. And these birds can go without food and water. We'll talk about that too. We'll just take the tip of the beak, whoop, dip it down in there, and the bird drank it, and it's good to go, okay? All these birds are very, very curious. As I set this back in here, I'll set that bird right beside of it. All the rest of the birds will look at him and go drink. They're already down there drinking. It's amazing. Let's get the camera over in here and show you some cool baby chick shots real quick. And then we'll talk about survival, and we'll talk about the next move after the brooder. You just see how curious these little guys are. They immediately figured out 2, 3, 4, 5 birds. They all figured it out. So that's just nature at work right there, guys. They'll figure out the feed somewhere within the next, well, there's one. These guys have been in here literally a minute and a half, I guess, and they're all curious, and they all go to where the other one is because they think somebody else has something that they want. Very cute, very sweet, and you'll see they're already starting to peck in the feeder and climb all over it. These birds will be just fine. We're going to remove our heat lamp because that is not going to be our primary heat source, okay? We're going to get rid of all this. All we'll do is loosen our quick grip, and we'll slide this guy out, get him out of the way. We'll leave the quick grip right here. We're going to go over and we're going to get our fluorescent light right here, okay? And you see it has a little hanger on there too. That's all I'm going to use. I'm going to slide this through the fluorescent light, and that little hanger right there will catch and right in the appropriate spot, and that'll give these birds light. Now, day and night. Let's talk about day and night. Do these birds need to know daylight and dark? Well, not for the first few days, guys. Daylight and dark is not something that's important. Light means safety. Light means home. Light means everything is okay. So we'll use this light, and we'll use the heater I showed you earlier, and we'll place that over here somewhere away from the light, and we want our birds to have access all the way around the feeder, all the way around the waterer you see over here, and all the way around the little brooder. I call this the plastic mother hen, and you see their instinct, we'll get this out of the way, is to go under mama hen right there. So we'll plug this in, get it warm. It's plenty warm out here today. It's 82 degrees, so there's no worries, and you see how curious. They're already climbing up on it. They'll be happy as clams in there. We'll put our light down. We want to keep daylight on these birds for at least the first 2 weeks, and then we can start establishing a rhythm, a circadian rhythm, the rhythm of night and day. and the birds will sleep in the night and they'll eat all day. So Josh, what's the next step? I get this question all the time. How long do I keep my birds in the brooder? Well, it depends on the outside temperature. It really does. What you want to do after about 2 to 3 weeks with these Cornish cross meat birds is start removing heat. So give them heat for a little bit of the day and no heat for a little bit of the day. Let them cool down at night. They'll huddle up together just like they huddled up in that box during shipping. Now let's talk about shipping. Baby chicks, Mother Nature has designed them to sit under the mother hen without food and water for a couple days as the rest of the brood hatches. That's why we call this a brooder. A hen that is with chicks is a broody hen. This is a brooder. If it were a mama hen, she would be the brooder, okay? So that's what you got to think about. In 2 to 3 weeks, we'll start establishing that circadian rhythm, that rhythm of night and day, and we'll slowly remove the heat from these birds and we'll get them used to cooler temperatures, and then we'll move them to our mobile coop, and I'm going to take you over and show you that. If you have layers, you also need to think if they're fully feathered out and they're only about as tall as your hand, they're probably still good. The measuring tool I use often on a Cornish cross bird is how much manure is going on here, because they won't feather out fully like a typical layer. If there's a lot of manure going on and every day you're in there cleaning it, which brings me to another tip, but every day you're in there cleaning it and they're jumping out of the brooder, if they can jump out of the brooder, it's time to get them outside, okay? And if it's real cold outside, say you have temperatures below 50 or 40 degrees, then you may want to put a heat lamp in your outside area for the birds to enjoy, okay? Now let's talk about cleanliness. You need to keep them clean, fresh water, and fresh food. What we do instead of cleaning this thing out every day like oh man, what a laborious process that would be. We just take another layer of shavings. That's why we put a thick layer first, so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the brooder, so it doesn't stick to that Tartar Farm and Ranch 100-gallon stock tank. We put a big thick layer in and it's going to be nasty. Eventually, by the time you move your chicks out, it's going to be nasty. Don't mix chicks of different ages. If you got chicks that are 3 weeks old and you got chicks that are brand new babies, like a week or 2 days old, don't do that. Don't mix them, because you're going to run into problems, okay? So we'll keep a close eye on these birds. We'll make sure they're warm. We'll make sure they're comfortable. And anytime that we see it getting soiled, we'll take more shavings and we'll add another layer and we'll add another layer. Sometimes by the end of the time these big Cornish crosses are in there, we'll have to add layers in the morning and in the evening. Typically, it'll be about, well, I guess about that deep, probably about 8 or 9 inches deep, probably up to the first divot in the bottom of that brooder container right there. So that's the safe setup with the fluorescent light hanging on an Irwin grip that is tightly secured so that that light doesn't fall down and cause problems. Chickens cause a lot of dust. Dust and heat leads to fire. Dust and heat lamps lead to fire. Let's take you over and we'll show you the mobile coop, and I think you'll enjoy that too. I think you'll really like that, and there's a bunch of videos out there with me in the mobile coop and moving the birds, and you can follow this journey as we raise these meat birds from day one today all the way to processing. This is our PVC mobile coop. It is about 2.5 feet high. It has 2 foot wide or tall chicken wire all the way around it, and you'll see right there, all 4 corners have solar motion lights on there, and that is to deter predators, because our birds will be eaten by predators if we don't deter them. And the biggest thing that will run off either a criminal breaking into your house or a predator breaking into your chicken coop is lights. So when we hit them with the light, if a raccoon or a possum's getting in there and we hit them with the light, they turn, tuck tail, and run. They get away from it. So that is our mobile coop. I'll post a link at the end of this video so that you guys can go see that. And what we do is a very similar setup. We get our feed from Reedy Fork Farm in Elon, North Carolina. That's our feed barrel that we carry around, and we use a lot bigger feeder. We use a lot bigger setup when it comes to raising our birds in the mobile coop, PVC mobile coop. That's 10 by 12. That will comfortably house 35 birds all the way through until they are ready for processing, okay? So that's 6 to 9 weeks, sometimes 10 to 12 weeks, depending on how hot it is outside. So if it's really hot outside, your birds are gonna gain weight slower. So be prepared for that. That's why we're getting our birds here in the fall, because cooler weather makes them pant less and they burn less energy, okay? So that's what's going on right there. That is our mobile coop. Again, I'll post a link to our Everything Chickens playlist at the end of the video and this. That way you can find the poopy butt video, because that is a very common problem. All this stuff is great, guys. So the meat bird mix that we get from Reedy Fork Farm, and that's an all organic mix, it looks a little bit different than the chick starter that's 24%, and I believe that that is either 18 or 20%. You don't want to give these birds too high of a protein for too long. The 24% will get them started, and then you need to step it down, okay? These birds grow really, really fast. If they're confined to an area like that, they get big and fat. We let them roam around and we move this mobile coop. It's lightweight and we move it every day. Boom, 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 all the way throughout. And this is our front yard. That's our front pasture. We just do this in our front yard. So you can do this on a half acre, third of an acre. You can do it in town. You can raise your own food, guys. I promise you can. Let's go back and see the baby chicks before we go. So our chicks are happy, they're healthy, they're warm, between 85 and 95 degrees. They need to have an area that they can get to that's between 80, let's just say 80 to 95 degrees. They're warm, they're happy, they're already gobbling down food, and these Cornish cross birds, they're just eating machines, guys. So keep a close eye on them, don't ignore them. Be careful, caution your kids and caution yourself. If you hold that little baby bird in your hand and it falls out and hits the ground, that baby bird most likely will perish. You don't want that, okay? You don't want that on your conscience, and that's a hard lesson for a child to learn. Ask me how I know. As a young man, as a young boy, probably 7 years old, I dropped a baby chick and I never felt so bad in my life. It was just such a horrible thing. But that's it. That's the brooder setup. We'll post links to everything you guys need. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments section. There's something I'm forgetting. I know it is. Remember, clean your hands, wash your hands, clean your hands, wash your hands, because you can get sick from these guys, no matter how cute they are. And I know all of you, if you've raised chicks before, you snuggled with them or whatever, but you can get sick from them, guys. So rest assured, washing your hands can never hurt. And don't get these animals up to your face, because they are animals. They are not people, okay? Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video today. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, please post them down there in the comments section. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Everybody else participate too. If you know the answer, answer the question. Guys, pound the like button, subscribe to the Stoney Ridge Farm channel for more fun stuff like this. We're building a first-generation farm here in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina, and we're making progress. It's a good time. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed the video. Woo!
Well, come on down to the Stoney Ridge. Bring your wife and bring your kids. We're living life pure and sweet. That's the way it's supposed to be, Stoney Ridge. Woo!
I remembered one more quick tip, guys. When your baby chick, you pick them up and it feels like they got a big old chunk of something weird growth growing on the side of their neck. Well, that's the first chamber of the chicken's digestive system. We call that the craw, and that will be cram-packed full of food, especially with the Cornish cross birds. They grow up fast, and buddy, they will eat a lot of food. They're eating and pooping machines, man. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.